Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are diving into an absolutely incredible explainer based on the complete cinematic experiment presented by Dr. Chem on the preparation of glass from silica-based materials. We're going to take a fascinating journey through material engineering, tracking exactly how we manipulate matter, starting from massive industrial glass smelting all the way down to the literal atomic scale. I mean, it's pretty wild when you stop and think about it, right? How do the foundational elements of just ordinary sand get transformed into everything from the massive windows on skyscrapers to the nanometer-thick advanced electronics inside the smartphone you're probably holding right now? We look through it, we interact with it every single day. But that journey from a greeny beach to an invisible high-tech interface, it's an absolute marvel of chemistry and engineering. So, to really grasp these complex processes, we're going to shrink our focus step by step. We'll start with the recipe for glass, then move on to modifying the glass network, look at the sol-gel process, jump into chemical vapor deposition, and finally wrap up with atomic layer precision. All right, let's kick things off with part one, the recipe for glass on an industrial scale. In Dr. Chem's experiment, we get to explore the surprisingly specific, almost baking-like recipe required to manufacture standard soda-lime glass. And by the way, this makes up about 77% of all commercial glass out there. Now, we kind of just think of glass as melted sand, but it's actually a highly precise mixture. You've got silica sand forming the 70% core structure, but pure silica is incredibly stubborn to melt, so we add roughly 15% soda ash to lower that melting temperature. Then 10% limestone is thrown in to improve durability, so it doesn't just degrade over time, and finally, we add cullet, which is recycled broken glass. That acts kind of like a catalyst, helping the new raw batch melt faster and way more evenly. But here is the crucial takeaway. You literally cannot just scoop up standard beach sand to make high-quality glass. No way. Premium glass-grade silica requires a minimum purity of 99.5%. If you have impurities in there, like iron oxide, which is super common in nature, it gives the glass this cloudy, odd-colored tint that completely ruins its optical clarity. Moving on to part two, modifying the glass network to lower viscosity. Now, you might be wondering how exactly that 15% of soda ash performs its magic. Well, imagine a tightly bound, continuous web of pure silicon dioxide. When we introduce sodium oxide from the soda ash, it acts almost like microscopic scissors. The oxygen from the modifier enters the network and actually breaks up those continuous bonds. And the sodium ions, they don't even become part of the main structure, they just kind of sit right there in the empty spaces. By disrupting this glassy network, we drastically lower the mixture's viscosity, making it infinitely easier to work with and form into shapes. So how does this actually play out during industrial melting? Well, as Dr. Chem shows us, we don't just blast the raw ingredients to maximum heat instantly. It's a process. Between 550 and 850 degrees Celsius, solid-state reactions form this intermediate double carbonate. Then, right around 820 degrees, this intermediate product melts and starts heavily reacting with the solid silica grains. And finally, the whole shebang is subjected to a staggering 1700 degrees Celsius in a gigantic smelting furnace, turning the batch into a glowing, bright orange liquid. Okay, let's step into part three, the sol-gel process, down in the liquid chemistry lab. Scaling our perspective way down from those blazing 1700-degree industrial furnaces, we step into the much cooler, much more controlled environment of the liquid chemistry lab. Instead of melting solids with intense heat, the sol-gel method is a brilliant workaround that lets us synthesize advanced glass directly from a liquid. Basically, we start with small precursor molecules in a solution. Through chemical reactions, these convert into a sol, which is just a suspension of solid particles. Then, these particles link together to form a gel, an integrated, continuous network. It's a real game changer because it allows us to create highly uniform materials at significantly lower temperatures. Zooming in on the microscopic reality here reveals something totally fascinating. Unlike the dense, solid block of traditional window glass we're used to, sol-gel processing yields these intricate, highly porous, nanoporous structures that traditional furnace melting simply could never pull off. And this massive surface area makes sol-gel materials incredibly valuable for specialized high-tech applications, like thermal insulation and chemical sensors. All right, on to part four, chemical vapor deposition, entering the microscopic realm. Shrinking our view even further into the microscopic realm, we see how we can actually build functional metallic and oxide materials seemingly out of thin air. It's pretty wild.
Chemical vapor deposition, or CVD, operates almost like a continuous, carefully orchestrated chemical storm. Gaseous chemical precursors are transported into a reaction zone. They diffuse through a boundary layer and undergo a really complex series of chemical reactions right at the surface of a substrate. The end result? A highly specific solid thin film, while all the excess gaseous byproducts are just safely swept away.
Now, this process is absolutely essential for manufacturing advanced ferroelectric oxide materials, which, by the way, were heavily used in modern memory devices. These materials often contain highly volatile elements like bismuth or lead. If you try to use vacuum-based techniques, these elements literally just evaporate away, leaving microscopic defects everywhere. CVD, however, operates at relatively high gas pressures and in oxygen-rich environments. This effectively traps those volatile elements, preventing re-evaporation and giving us perfectly flawless thin films. And finally, Part 5, Atomic Layer Precision. True atom-by-atom control. For our final scale down, we're moving beyond the continuous storm of CVD and entering the most patient, ultra-precise manufacturing technique in our entire toolkit, atomic layer deposition. So in standard CVD, reactant gases are introduced simultaneously to get rapid film growth, but atomic layer deposition, or ALD, intentionally separates them. We pulse the first precursor, let it react with the surface, and then completely purge the chamber with inert gas before we even think about pulsing the second precursor. The reactive gases are never ever in the chamber at the exact same time. And this single distinction, it literally changes everything. Because the reagents in ALD are introduced sequentially, the chemical reactions are strictly limited to the substrate surface. Once every available reactive binding site on that surface is occupied, the reaction naturally just stops itself. This self-limiting behavior guarantees that each complete cycle deposits exactly one uniform layer, stopping perfectly at a thickness of just a single molecule or atom. This reality perfectly highlights why this shift matters so much today. I mean, as we pack billions of transistors into a single microchip and demand increasingly complex 3D microscopic components, traditional continuous manufacturing methods are just getting too blunt. To keep up with this relentless demand for miniaturization, our manufacturing absolutely must scale down to manipulate matter literally atom by atom to ensure flawless uniformity. Ultimately, understanding how to engineer materials across all these distinct scales, from giant 1700-degree smelting pots shaping architectural glass, all the way down to patient chemical vapors stacking single atoms for our microchips, leaves us with a really fascinating prospect. As we master the manipulation of these invisible atomic building blocks with unprecedented precision, what incredible, world-changing macroscopic devices are just waiting to be built tomorrow? Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and we'll catch you in the next one.